The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
The Sergeant at Arms announces the presence in the chamber of the General Stephen S. Nordhaus, Chief of the National Guard Bureau, and SEA John T. Raines III, Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chief of the National Guard Bureau. He is escorted by Major General Hal Lamberton, the Adjutant General of Kentucky and the Vice Chairman, Army of the National Guard Association of the United States. Major General Retired Andra L. Berry, the former Adjutant General of Nevada and the Vice Chairman, heir of the National Guard Association of the United States. And Major General Thomas H. Mancino, the Adjutant General of Oklahoma and a member of the National Guard Association of the United States Board of Directors.
Please take your seats. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce your next guest speaker. He does not need an introduction with this audience, I know. He has spent 36 years in uniform as a member of the Air National Guard. I had to play along just for once, right? So he is a member of the Air National Guard, flew F-16s out of Toledo, has been just a great member of our institution. It's a pleasure to have him at the helm. He served as the Air National Guard in the Air National Guard Readiness Center as the commander, and as a tour as the Director of Operations at the National Guard Bureau. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our Chief of the National Guard Bureau, General Nordhaus.
Hey, Guard Nation, let's hear it for our 433,500 Guardsmen that are committed around the world, across the 54, across 2,500 communities, saving lives every day to include today. How about our National Guard? I'm very humbled to be here with our Senior Enlisted Advisor, number 7, John Raines. John, how you doing today?
Hey, doing great, sir. How could you not help but be fired up, Guard Nation, with day one? Having our chairman up here and then listen to him say, I'm telling you, it gave me goosebumps when I heard him say, I'm happy to be back home. I mean, how many times have we been able to hear that from the chairman, talking about being a guardsman?
Happy to be back home. Well, hey, got to start off with a few thank yous. General Rogers, teammates, General Stubbs, thank you for Wisconsin. Tina, Chief Workman, let's hear it for Wisconsin again, putting this together along with NGAUS. Hey, I want to do a shout out to our 54 adjutants generals. I mean, they stand at the cusp between state and federal every day, building readiness across our formations, understanding what they might have to do within the homeland, whether it's wildfires or hurricanes or floods or a tornado, or sending folks downrange to be able to be mission ready in any combatant command, and we serve in them all. Let's hear it for our adjutants general across the 54. To our senior statesmen, incredible. Not only multiple decades, 25, 30, 35, 40. General Grass, 46 years, 11 months, and probably some days in there. To all of our chiefs here, General Hokanson, General McKinley, General Grass, General Reese, and to all our senior statesmen that every day help us and continue after it day after day. Let's hear it for our senior statesmen that keep after it. Thank you. Now I'm up here with purpose, as you heard the chairman talk about our enlisted corps, the envy of the globe. And so as Chief and SEA team up day in, day out, we got to be synced across the board. And I got the best partner in the world, and you got a few people to thank too.
I do, sir. I do. As I look right here on the front row at these two beautiful women sitting here,
Yay.
Our two spouses, I can't help but think about the families. So I want to give the first shout out to our family members that are here and back home. And then General Rogers, he helped you out, you know, with a I'm not even going to say it. So I'm just going to go right to my guard state. Where's my Mississippi family at? And then
Okay, Buckeyes.
I told you I wasn't going to say it. Oh, wait, sir. But then, hey, to all these soldiers and airmen that are joining us here today. So just thank you for being here. We appreciate your time. We know a lot of you here on your own dime, and we just appreciate you being here.
Hey, thanks a lot. As we look back to 1636, our National Guard has been here for our nation, defending, saving lives, securing our homeland and our freedoms across centuries, across continents. Our National Guard has always been there. We are 20% of the joint force at 4% of the DoD budget.
We are also 42%, we learned today, because we heard the Chief of Staff of the Army say it, of the combat power of the Army. And then we're 30% of the operational strength of the Air Force.
And as General Rogers said today, we're accessible, we're affordable, we're incredibly experienced. I got to go out and fly in the F-15EX. Where's Oregon? There you are. Think about this. They have 36 pilots. I asked them, how many are instructors? 22. How many are weapons school grads? 11. Think about the experience, and that's formation to formation across our Army and our air that bring in this capability.
Yes, sir. And I will tell you, when we look at our partnership piece, not just our partners. We're going to talk a little bit about SPP. We heard some questions already asked about it. We partner with 60% of the world's countries, but also we're talking about those interagency partners, the ones that we respond to inside of every state. The Guard is always ready and always there.
Thanks, John. And when we talk about being across 2,500 communities and in every zip code, we got to be ready, right? Because our National Guard never know when that call is going to come in. And then we see things like this happen. Midnight Hammer. John, you want to kick it off?
I will. Where's Missouri at? Hey, me and the boss were given the incredible opportunity to go and visit the crews that carried out the teeth of Midnight Hammer. So we went up there, we met with them, and I'm going to tell this in a way that a soldier tells it. Now, the boss might tell it different because he's on the air side. But I'm going to tell you, where's Kentucky at? So I'm saying that because of basketball. You know, I think of basketball when I think of Midnight Hammer. I think of that last second shot, you know, thrown all the way from the court, and that thing's got to be on the perfect trajectory to be able to go through the net. And when I think about the mission that we carried out, 37 continuous hours of flying, 18 and a half to get there to accomplish the mission. And then we dropped 14 30,000-pound bombs, and they had to be perfect. they had to get in a ventilation shaft that was about 11 feet, wide in diameter. So I think about the perfection of that basketball shot and how perfect it's got to be. And how often do you see that in basketball? Not often. Well, what was our team? Our team was 14 for 14 in making that thing go where it needed to be. Those 30,000-pound bombs. And I know it from a soldier's perspective and most airmen, have you ever seen a 30,000-pound bomb? I would say from me to the boss is about the size of that bomb. And going back being a soldier again, I always don't know everything that our airmen do. But watching those airmen, there had to be airmen that have an AFSC to put that thing together. I think in the Army, hey, ammo just shows up and it's ready to go. But that's not the case. They put those things together. Then there's another crew that comes in, they got to hang it under the B-2. 2 of those bombs on each B-2, 17 and a half hours, refueling in the air 3 times, and then putting those things on target.
And John, we had guardsmen and bombers. We had guardsmen and tankers. We had guardsmen and AOCs. We had guardsmen and fighters. And as you talked about the enlisted corps, as they're building those bombs, everything's got to be put together 100% correct. And so SCA Raines and I, we want to make sure that as we're talking to not only the officer corps and commanders, but making sure that your senior enlisted and your command teams out there are super tight. Because we got to get in line with priorities. And so, John, I'm going to have you kick off these priorities.
Hey, when we talk about priorities, it was a very clear mandate when the new administration come in. You've heard it time and time again today. You heard it from the chairman. You've heard it from the other speakers that have come up. Peace through strength. That's what it starts with. And then the Secretary of Defense come in, and he said, hey, here's how we're going to do that. We're going to restore warrior ethos. We're going to rebuild our military. We're going to reestablish deterrence. And then he throwed some priorities up under there. Lethality, meritocracy, accountability, standards, readiness. And it all starts with those things. And I know a lot of people hear us talk about that, and they think, hey, strategic level. But these things have an impact on the outcomes, and they have a strategic impact if we don't get them right.
When we look at the National Guard, vision is to be an elite warfighting and response force, stronger together, stronger tomorrow. Elite, lethal, you heard the chairman talk about it. Stronger together. That doesn't mean just in your squadrons, in your platoons, in your companies. That means across your formations. But that doesn't mean just across your formations. That means across Air Guard and Army Guard. That means joint, interagency. And then we bring in our 115 state partners. Then we bring in our local state and response. We got to be stronger together. And to be stronger tomorrow, that means every day we're getting better, right? Every day we're getting 1% better. So you get done with today and you got 1% better. Tomorrow's coming, and you got to get 1% better again. We have to embrace change across our formation. We got to make sure we stay ahead and can have the capability needed to always have that deterrence like the chairman talked about. So no adversary can ever think today's the day to take on the United States or our National Guard. And then we get down to our missions. You've all seen this before, National Guard missions. Warfight, homeland, and partnerships. We do these across the board. But the most important thing is that guardsman, right? Without that guardsman, we can't do anything. And it's that citizen soldier since 1636 that is making the difference every day, getting better, bringing innovation in, finding a better way to do business, and making sure we can take care of our citizens and defend our homeland.
Then once you get into that, you're going to talk about our priorities, and you're going to hear this a lot from us. This is how we've organized, how we communicate with the force. We want everybody to understand these priorities. And like the boss said, it starts with people. How do we define people? 2 ways, the war fighters and the families. So we're going to take that, and then we're going to put it into what we call, or I call, a tachometer. I think about cars when I think about RPMs, but in this case, it's not revolutions per minute. It's readiness, modernization, and partnerships. And then we're going to work on that. We're just going to keep spinning in that priorities until we produce strength, because that's the ultimate goal. Just like the administration said, peace through strength. And we're going to stay in that tachometer, and we're just going to keep spinning every day for when tomorrow comes.
Hey, SCA, the chairman talked today about his priorities. These are all in alignment, right? He talked about being armed, being integrated, right? He talked about being ready, and he talked about you. That's these: warfight, readiness, partnerships, that integration, and the modernization is being armed. But you know, at the base of it all are our core values, right? Think about loyalty, duty, personal courage, integrity, service before self, excellence in all that we do. That foundation is our core to make sure that we can always answer the call. We're always ready and always there. And so here in a few seconds, we're going to tell you a few stories about incredible airmen and soldiers that when the call came in, they didn't have time to get fit. They had to be fit to be able to answer the call. They had to be ready to be able to go save lives at a moment's notice.
Just about a month after we left Detroit last year in NGAUS, Hurricane Helene was building in the Gulf Coast, coming across Florida, took a surprise turn up through Georgia, and then stalled out in the southern Appalachian Mountains. The Guard was ready. We made phone calls like we always make. So there were two soldiers, Specialist Moore.
Specialist Moore
And
Ward.
Specialist Ward.
Yes.
So, you know, I've been telling you I was going to forget those names. But Specialist Moore and Specialist Ward, they got the call. When they get the call, they say, hey, we're ready. We're available. So they sit there hanging tight because the sun is shining in Tennessee. They're in eastern Tennessee. So where's Tennessee at? So, hey, Specialist Moore, his dad is helping pack his go bag, packing food, packing batteries, the things that you need for what he thinks is going to be a 24-hour mission. So he gets the call the next day. He goes into the unit. They go in. Specialist Ward is there. They give them an LMTV. They say, hey, there is a mission in a hospital where it is rising water and people are trapped. We're going to need you to go in and do a rescue mission, a high water rescue mission. So they don't ask any questions. They receive commander's guidance, and they do what makes us different. It's the mission command piece. They received what the commander told them, and then they get ready to execute. So on the way to the Unicoi County Hospital, they come across what was usually a calm river, a calm stream. They get there, and it's a raging river now. So they have to make a decision. Now, as you look on that screen, two specialists have to make a command decision. They've got no comms because they're out of contact with their telephones. Their radios are not working, so they got to make a command decision. Specialist Moore says, hey, I conducted a hasty risk assessment. And I said, hey, we've got people in need. We're going to accept this risk. We're going to go across this stream. So they head across that stream. They lock it in 4 low. They undo their seatbelts, and they start heading across. They said everything's good. The LMTV's got traction. Everything's going good. They see a debris pile floating toward them. The debris pile collides with the LMTV. It starts sliding with the flow of the river until it runs off of the road, loses traction, and then turns over. Water is filling in the cab of the truck. So they are trying to figure out, hey, we got to get out of here. So they're trying to open the doors. Doors won't open because of the pressure. The water is still rising. They got one last breath in. The water fills the cab of the truck. So now they're underwater. They're trying to get out. They're on a rescue mission. Now they got to rescue themselves. So when you think about PT, you think about fitness, Specialist Ward is now wedged his back up in that truck, and he is doing a deadlift against the door to try to get the door open. So he gets the door open enough to squeeze part of his body out, all while holding his breath. Specialist Moore is on the other side trying to get out the windows, trying to get the windows disconnected or opened somehow. So they both get out. They don't know which way is up. They see a light. They swim to the light. They surface above the water. They start looking around. They're hollering for each other. They find each other. And then they see the debris pile that caused the collision and caused them to capsize, overturn, and is stuck on a tree line. They swim to the tree line, get on the debris pile, They regroup. They call 911 on one of them's telephone that will still work, but it's got no signal, but the 911 service works on it, and they make contact. So they're sitting there, and they're thinking probably what most E4s are thinking. Hey, this hasn't gone well. We failed our mission. We lost our LMTV. I wonder what's going to happen to us. But hey, they don't have long to think, because at that point in time, the flood had went through an industrial park and had swept people that had not been evacuated out, and they start seeing people floating down the raging river. So now they sweep into action, and they are going into water, bringing people back to the debris pile. All in all, they saved 6 people that day. And then they called in the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks come in, hoisted everybody in. They refused to go in until all 6 victims that they had brought onto the debris pile were into the helicopter. And then they went up into the helicopter and went home. Brandon Moore, Specialist Brandon Moore, when he gets home, he didn't even have a ride home. He had lost everything in his bag that his dad packed. When he gets home, his dad is coming down the road. He's not home yet. So he runs up to his dad, and he's telling his dad, you won't believe my day I've had. But that's the kind of soldiers that we have. That's the kind of airmen that we have. You know, nobody had to be there directing them. They took action themselves. They were not discouraged by, hey, the failure to get across that river for that one mission, and they jumped into action for another mission that they haven't been briefed on, just based on the situation and their ability to act, which is what makes us different than most armies around the world.
Hey, let's hear it for Specialist Ward and Moore. But now let me take you across the Atlantic Ocean over into CENTCOM. 13 April 2024. Tensions rising over there between Israel, Iran. Intel starting to pick up. Maybe shoot multiple cruise missiles, drones, ballistic missiles at U.S. interests, at U.S. personnel, at our allies. And as our teams wake up, where's D.C. at? All right. All right. Where's Tennessee? So we got Tennessee flying KC-135s. We got D.C. flying F-16s. 2 different bases. I won't say where they're at. 95 degrees, early morning. Everybody's calling each other. Hey, you better get into the squadron. Things are picking up. We need to get all the jets ready, not just the 6 ship for today. We need them all ready. We don't know exactly how many jets we're going to need on the F-16 side. Same thing on the tanker side. So they ready all the tankers, all the F-16s, so that when the call comes in, wait, calls are coming in. Okay, here's the timing. Where do we need to be? What's it going to look like? When do we think threats are coming in? So now they have to start really mission planning across the AOR and understanding who's going to be where and how many missiles are going to be inbound, cruise missiles, drones, and what are they going to have to intercept so that we don't lose lives. So all of a sudden you get the KC-135s and they get ready to go take off, but countries are shutting down different airspaces, so they get delayed. So they're trying to get clearance to take off. F-16s are starting to roll down their taxiways. They got a 6 ship getting ready to take off. It's starting to get towards nighttime, right? Then all of a sudden the KC-135s get clearance, but now they're behind the timeline. They already have F-15Es airborne, and a 6 ship F-15Es turns out to be maybe 20. They're all airborne and they're burning gas. So if the tankers don't get there, they're going to have to go land somewhere else. The mission will fail. But no, Tennessee, the 134th, their incredible aviation skills, they push it up. They make the appropriate decisions, how to take off, how to get to the right airspace, how to get clearance into the airspace, to meet the tankers and other tankers, so there's 4 of them, and then to meet the fighters and offload 800,000 gallons of gas, right? To be able to get those fighters in position to be able to intercept drones and incoming cruise missiles. The F-16s from D.C., same thing. They get airborne, and they're in Block 30 jets. NGAUS, that we know we've received in the National Guard, is so critical, so they got advanced radars. They got advanced helmets. They got advanced targeting pods. They have capabilities now to be able to communicate and see very small things, to be able to get down and get right in position. And so that night, the KC-135s out of Tennessee enabled the fighters up there to get in position, and the F-16s as well with their capabilities to get down low and knock down 80 of the cruise missiles inbound of the 300 that night. So they took down a third, and they were able to, in the IADs across the theater that day, were able to take down 99% thanks to the work of the KC-135s out of Tennessee. Let's hear you. And DC F-16s. And they were awarded 15 Distinguished Flying Crosses for their efforts. Let's hear it to our airmen and everybody engaged in those mission sets. We talk about homeland and our warfighters and families. We talk about the warfight. But John, the homeland is where our feet are solidly on the ground all the time.
They are, sir. And I will tell you, our soldiers and airmen are awesome. And they're there every single day. So where were you on July the 3rd? What were you doing on July the 3rd? If you were wearing this uniform full time, you were probably off because that was probably a comp day. But there were some storms rolling through Texas, the hill country in Texas. And everybody's heard of Camp Mystic now. But before this, nobody had heard the word Camp Mystic, really, outside of that area. But our guardsmen were there at work. They'd been given the warning order. Hey, flash floods are coming. We don't know the exact area, but we know the region. So Texas sends out the warning order. They send out the warning order, and Texas decides, hey, we're going to fill this with 4 crews of UH-60s. Some are slick, some are going to be hoist capable. They're going to be partnered with their interagency partners from Texas, across Texas, rescue swimmers. The Coast Guard is going to be there. There's all kind of people that are getting ready to respond to this event. They just do not know where the event's going to be. So on July the 3rd, they're doing what we do. They're doing pre-combat inspections, pre-combat checks, and they're getting those things ready. You know, they're not in a hurry to get out of there, you know, knowing that they're off. Hey, everybody, like we were doing, getting ready for the 4th of July, figuring out what family and friends you're going to have over. Hey, what you going to have for the barbecue. They're prepping weapons. They're prepping people. They're prepping equipment. They're getting ready just in case they're needed. The projection was about 08 on July the 4th is when this event was going to happen. It moved faster than what everybody thought. So it come in the middle of the night. About 4:30, 5 o'clock, Captain Connor Garrison gets his phone call. Hey, we need you now. The storm is moving faster. His whole crew, ready. They answer their telephones. They get to the airfield. Their aircraft is already ready. They plot an area to see, hey, how do we get behind this thing? Because they're still in the middle of the storm. You can't fly a Black Hawk right through one of these storms. So they're looking, hey, where do we go? How do we get there the fastest to be able to save lives? So, hey, they decide they're going to plot a westerly course. They're going to go behind the storm. They're going to go to a small airfield on the south side of the storm and then wait for it to go past before they go into action. They get down there. Most of the rotary assets had plotted the same course. So they were all at that small airfield. About 18 rotary aircraft were there ready to go. Interagency, multi-agency were there. So they had to make a call. They make a call, they accept some risk, and they head out, probably before they would have been advised to, because they are hearing the stories, the same stories that we're hearing. Hey, there's girls missing. These camps have been flooded. So they're trying to get there as fast as they can. So they plot a course, they divvy up areas, and they all head out together in a kind of an air assault fashion. And they drop as they get to their areas that they're going to search. Captain Garrison and his crew draw the Camp Mystic area. They get there, they spot children, you know, on the banks, outside of the water. They land. They pack as many as they can in. And then they go to hasty combat casualty collection points that had been set up by our interagency partners. And they start shuttling kids. Altogether, they shuttled over 73 kids to safety. With them and our interagency partners, over 500 people were rescued and brought to safety. And if you're a parent, you're a grandparent, think about what that meant. Your kids are out there. You're hearing these stories. You don't know who's alive. You don't know who survived. And the speed at which they brought them back and they eased those people's minds. Captain Garrison's comment when we talked to him on the telephone, because we made some phone calls, we talked to each one of these soldiers, each one of these airmen that were involved in these incidents. His thing was, hey, we never want to go out, but we know if there's a need and there's something going on, that's where we want to be at. And that's the mentality of our airmen and our soldiers across the Guard.
Yeah, thanks, SEA. As we talk about partnerships, you can also see on this picture that rescue worker, he's from Czech Republic. A year prior, the Czech Republic had a bunch of floods, and there was an MQ-9 from Texas over there, and the EUCOM commander gave that MQ-9 over to Czech Republic so that they could find their floods and figure it out. So as soon as this happened, and the Czech Republic saw Texas was in need, they sent 16 of their rescue folks over with 4 of their rescue dogs. And so the partnerships that we talk about that come in are just incredible. As you heard SEA at the beginning, 60% of the nations on the globe are partnered with a state. 2 days ago, I was over in Saudi Arabia and signed the state partnership between Oklahoma. Whoop, good job, Tommy. Yeah! And Indiana, where's Indiana? There you go. So another state partnership. 9 additional state partners this year. What you see on this picture here is I was down at Fort Polk. Anybody been down to Fort Polk, say in like mid-July? Everybody know how great it is weather-wise? It's beautiful. It's about 95, about 200% humidity. And I'll tell you what, you're sweating from the time you get out of whatever vehicle you get out of, and it is intense. And our folks are warfighting there. They're training. They're getting after the mission set. And so we have Colorado. Colorado? You're down there, and you got Jordan, and you're fighting side by side, training with your Jordanian partners. And then we got Iowa there with Kosovo. Where's Iowa? All right, with Kosovo. And so to see this training and how we're getting after this new way of fighting as the character of war is changing is incredible. But it takes that partnership, right, that makes such an incredible difference. I also went down to the NTC. Where's Florida? So the 53rd, you all crushed it. I went out there. I got a briefing from Op 4, right, the opposing forces. They said, sir, we always win. We know the territory. We know the terrain. It's our job to make it really difficult. Well, I got to say, the 53rd and 15 other states around here kicked ass. You really did. It was amazing the work that you all did out there. But you were also partnered. Where's Virginia? Virginia and Finland are at NTC. They're training and fighting together. Maryland. All right, Maryland. One more time? All right, good. So Maryland's there was Estonia. And to get after the fighting and the training there, doing amazing work. But I want to tell you about another partnership. Washington and Thailand, right? Indo-PACOM theater. Really important theater, right? Priority theater. And so the person that you see here is Tech Sergeant Tim Williams from Washington. He was active duty, was in a MOS he wanted to change out of, so he joined the Guard and became a JTAC. Right, so now he's a Joint Tactical Air Controller, and he started working with Thailand and helping to train their JTACs. And so this goes back to 2017 to 2019, and ever since 2019, he's been training Thailand JTACs on their ranges, and then they come to us and they train on our ranges, the Thailand F-16s. And so this partnership goes on and on, whether it's Cope Tiger or Enduring Partners, which is happening today, or overseas, making an incredible difference with these partnerships. So as we talk about warfight, homeland, and partnerships, we need to get after these priorities.
Yeah, when we talk about these priorities, we've talked about a lot of the successes that we've had across the Guard. But we would not want to stand up here and tell you that, hey, we don't have some challenges out there. Now, we have accomplished a great deal this year. In fact, if you look at our recruiting numbers, Our recruiting numbers across the 54 are at historical highs. So that's a thanks to the job that you have done and those recruiters have done, those production recruiters have done on the street. It's the Air Guard at 110% of their end strength. The Army Guard, 108% of their end strength. Both are in the tops of the DoD when you talk about services and you talk about components. But we have some challenges. We're looking good on the manning side, but we're going to work through some of these challenges. Duty status reform is something we've been trying to hit for years and years. You've seen some movement here. You've probably read about it. You know, we just recently, Major General Wendy Winkie was going to retire. They asked her to come up and work at the OSD level and work in a working group for 90 days to get after duty status reform. So why is that important? We want to pay our soldiers on time. We want to be able to get their orders cut on time without having to do VOCOs. We want to be able to put them on mission with the paperwork they need to ensure they're getting paid the right amount and they're getting their entitlements and their benefits. That leads us to pay parity. Pay parity is just common sense. If you got two soldiers, two airmen that are sitting there on the same mission, but they have to be in different components or they have to be in different titles because of the way we cut their orders, they should receive the same pay, the same benefits. So we are working toward that. Both of those are at OSD level, and we are partnering with them right now on duty status reform and pay parity.
And working in aligning with the 54 adjutants generals, we're also getting after Militech optimization, something that hasn't been updated in 35 years. We're working on getting after TRICARE gap coverage to take it from 30 days to 45 or 60 days. We are also working at federal employment health benefits and making sure that right now it's been approved in 2030, but can we pull that to the left and bring it to 2026 or 2027? You also heard Senator Baldwin today, right? Talking about healthcare. So healthcare is an absolute priority for us. But now let's talk about readiness and the things we're getting after there.
Yeah, when you look at the readiness front, one of the things that the boss did, and he asked me to try to get after with him when he first come on, was look at the tooth to tail piece. Hey, do we got too many people working at the higher headquarters level? And that started at our headquarters. You know, let's look at that. How many people do we have there? So what you've seen within the first 6 months was, hey, we did a working group. We sat down, we looked at our numbers, we asked our staffs to do a deep dive. It resulted in a 20% reduction in the full-time manning at the National Guard Bureau. It resulted in 25% reduction in the GOs that we had on the Title 10 side, so we could push that down to the states and get after readiness, because we know that the full-time money that we allocate to the states is directly contributable to how much readiness that we have.
As we look at other things, it's a foundational readiness accounts. So we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we increase our foundational readiness accounts, from flying hours, weapon system sustainment, and FSRM, facility sustainment, restoration, and modernization, right? And then we're also getting after exercises like JRTC, Joint Readiness Training Centers, and making sure that we have those CTC rotations that we need. Readiness is key to being able to be always ready and always there. And let's talk about partnerships.
Hey, when you talk about partnerships, you've already heard that we partner with 60% of the countries of the world. Well, hey, that comes with a price. When we look at our SPP programs, you look at the dollars that are going to be distributed against that partnership with 60% of the world. We've got a little work to do. So everybody, and we've got to get more timely on the execution of our funds. We got to get them to you at the right time, so therefore you can execute. We can't wait until the last quarter of the year and drop it on you and then expect you to be successful in the partnerships. Our partnerships, you've heard it all day long. You've heard the chairman talk about it. You just heard the Chief of Staff of the Army talk about it. It is one of the most strategic, respected things that we bring to the fight, is being able to partner with that many countries around the world. And when our active duty brethren get ready to deploy somewhere, they usually call whoever that state partnership. So it's not, it used to be a good secret that we kept out there. Everybody knows the state partnership program. And everybody goes, hey, reach out. We go back to Ukraine. We've heard this story over and over again. Where's California? So we've heard the story over and over about the first call Ukraine made was to California. But that's not the only partner, you know, that has done that, because we stay there. We stay there year after year. 32 years we've been investing in the state partnership program. And we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to get the money to you when you need it on time so we can deliver on the state partnership program.
But it's also partnerships local to global, right? So it's within your local communities and what you're doing with your first responders, fire, police, to make sure within your state as well that we continue to build those relationships. And then as we go into modernization, we got to modernize concurrently and at the same pace and speed as our active component. You heard the chairman talk about being armed, right? We got to be armed. We got to be ready to go when the time needs with the right equipment, that we can be interoperable and interchangeable with an incredible, affordable force that we have that's incredibly accessible and experienced. And John, that's going to build us to strength. So as we close out, you got a few things?
Yeah, I'll talk about the Air Force a little bit on the modernization piece. You know, we always talk about modernization and fighter recap. So we're looking at the F-35s. We're looking at the F-15EXs. We're looking at those things. We're looking at the KC-46. You know, we're looking at, hey, the H to Js on the 130s. All of those things are critically important to keeping us relevant and making sure that we've got the latest and greatest equipment.
And as we partner with General George on a weekly basis, he and I are talking. I know he is just in here. He headed out, and you know we're getting after ATI, and he talked about it, but we got to change and transform at the same pace and speed. We need to get the infantry squad vehicles timely, the infantry squad weapons. We need to get the 60 mics or the floors on the same pace and speed so that we can have our formations ready to go across the board. And then that's going to give us the strength we need, but we all have to work together. One team, one fight. And then, John, any closing comments?
I would just tell you, hey, these stories are just isolated stories, or not isolated stories. They're happening every single day. You know the stories, but we got to do a better job of telling our stories, telling what our guardsmen are doing day in and day out, whether it be in the homeland, whether it be in the war fight, or whether it be that strategic edge of our partnerships bring us. We've got to be telling those stories and relaying those stories so guardsmen know themselves, but not just guardsmen, all of our partners across the Department of Defense are aware of the incredible things that our guardsmen are bringing to the joint fight.
Hey, before we take questions, I just want to end with a quote and a thank you. So the quote is Patton's, right? War may be won with fought with equipment, but they're won by people, right? It's our war fighters that make all the difference. So thank you. So when you leave here, please go out to all our war fighters and families and thank them from SEA Raines and I for what they're doing. The families that enable all this to happen is amazing. And as we talked about getting after our priorities of warfight, readiness, partnerships, and modernization, if we keep hitting that flywheel every day, getting just a little bit better, we'll be the most incredible force like we are right now, but we'll be that much stronger. So we're stronger together and stronger tomorrow. And so we're going to finish up here before we take questions with, we're going to get a little bit of audience participation here. We're going to try to set a world record for how loud Always Ready and Always There is. Okay? So John and I, SEA Raines and I are going to say Always Ready, and can you give us back an Always There with a little bit of gusto? All right? So John, SEA Raines, the National Guard is 433,000 strong, and we are always ready. Man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. How about one more time? The National Guard's 433,000 strong, and we are always ready. All right, thanks for listening. We're ready for some questions.
Cease Reed from Wyoming. Hopefully you don't recognize me, sir.
Hey, I do recognize you. How you doing?
Well, everybody knows me as not walking away from tough questions, even when I was the ADFAC chair for General McKinley way back when. So 1 year ago, then President Trump made a statement that if he was elected, there would be a Space National Guard. Has anything changed on that, and can you update us on that, sir?
Yeah, the update I'll give you is that, Congress made into law that they'll transfer 578 from the Air National Guard to the Space Force, so that's law. So we're working very hard to make sure, one, that we take care of people, and our mission. The Secretary of the Air Force has made a decision that that transfer of mission will go to the Space Force 1 October here in about less than 40 days. And so in that, we're following that, but we're making sure we're taking care of our people and our mission. One of the things we're working very hard on is making sure that we get funding, and the Secretary of the Air Force said that he would help us focus on the funding to make sure that every one of our airmen that are in those units get remissioned into something that is part of the NDS, right? Something that's critical, whether it's cyber or whether it's cyber-enabled air superiority or whether it's some other type of mission that's going to make sure that our airmen have an incredible mission to do if they don't transfer into the Space Force.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir, good afternoon. I'm Colonel Rosel B. Salvosa from the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Philippines,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm the
Thank you.
State Partnership Coordinator with the Guam and Hawaii National Guard.
Great.
We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the State Partnership. It's the longest partnership in the Indo-Pacific under the Mutual Defense Board and Security Engagement Board. In 2023, the former Chief National Guard Bureau, General Hawkinson, went to the Philippines, and he attended a graduation of two of our courses. And in 2024, Command Sergeant Major Rains conducted a Senior Enlisted Leadership Forum. My question is, when are you going to the Philippines to test and to check and evaluate the effectiveness and all the victories and successes of the Hawaii and Guam National Guards?
Well, tomorrow I will fly and head to Indo-PACOM, but I'm not going to the Philippines. But I have been to the Indo-PACOM theater 3 times so far because of how critical it is. And so as I head over there, I know our state partnership program continues to grow, and Indo-PACOM is going to be a priority theater. I spent time with both Hawaii and Guam, right? So General Cruz, General Logan, if you're in here, shout out. All right, so both incredible states partnered with the Philippines, and that's an incredible, very important partnership with us. So I hope to get there during my time as chief.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Gentlemen, if you can join me up here, please. Thank you. You see the chemistry of an amazing team on the stage right there. And that chemistry and that teamwork is going to elevate us to even greater standards, greater levels of accomplishment. So on behalf of a grateful nation of National Guard members, I'd like to present you both with the ornamental recognition of your contribution, your presence here. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for what you've done, the time you've spent here, and again, the time you spent last night. I've heard from my fellow members that you spent almost the entire evening with them and shut the place down. So that's awesome. So thank you so much for what you've done, and I hope you're going to be able to take some more questions out on the floor later on.
Absolutely. Thanks, General Rogers. Thanks for your teamwork. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Will the Sergeant at Arms please escort our distinguished guests back from the platform, please? And as General Nordhaus departs and SEA Rains, I'd like to invite Shauna Eason, Lieutenant Colonel Shauna Eason, to the stage, please.